Right, so shall we start the recording? Yeah, recording has started. Yes, thank you, Victoria. All right, so a very good afternoon or noon or morning, depending on where you are, to everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to our panel discussion on EdTech today. My name is Ioannis. I am the Academic Director of SEMS here in GSOM in St. Petersburg State University, proud director of SEMS, I would say. And today we have a very interesting discussion on education, online education, on EdTech, or as you all very well know. And I have the great pleasure and honor to have with us two distinguished guests. Ladies first, allow me to introduce Julia, the head of MBA in Netology Group, and Ilya, the head of educational services at Yandex. Together, what is the agenda for today? The agenda is that our guests will briefly introduce themselves, and then we will jump into Q&A discussion. So you can send your questions in the chat to Victoria or Victor over here, and then we will get into a lovely discussion. In doing so, please feel free to unmute yourselves, switch on your cameras to make it even more interactive. But kindly raise your hand, wait for your turn. Let's respect the rules of engagement here and all enjoy. So without further ado, Julia and Ilya. Julia, the audience is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia. I am head of MBA programs in Netology. For those who don't know, Netology is one of the top EdTech companies in Russia. We have around 8 departments at Netology, and MBA is one of them. It's one of the youngest one. We launched it last year, and so far we have 3 programs there. It's a digital MBA program and MBA program that we are launching this September. Both of these programs we are doing in partnership with European and American universities. And also we are very interested in launching leadership track. So far we have a program with in partnership with World Howl, for those who maybe know the company. And in the near future, we're going to develop this track a bit further. And also we are working with traditional universities, and this year we're launching a program with HEC, and we're going to have, I think, around 5 more programs, which we're going to launch in September this year. Long story short, I think this is it from me. Ilya?
Yeah, thanks, Yulia. So I work for Yandex now, so I'm head of educational services. It's kind of a new business unit for Yandex. It's new business, and sometimes in Yandex we start new experiments, which is kind of our way to grow new businesses without influence of a huge company. And education, it's kind of this, and this is experiment which was brought to life 3 years ago. Now we have grown significantly, and we have around 2,000 people who work for us in different ways. And generally, I came from consulting. I was a partner of EKAPSI. It's a big Russian HR and management consulting company. Then I moved to a strange position, which was called Vice President on Organizational Development and Strategy in Просвещение Publishing Group. And from here, I moved to Yandex. And so we make products for adults and for kids as well. And actually not exactly for kids, for teachers, I would say. Our 2 main services are Yandex Chebnik, school book, and Yandex Practicum, or Practicum by Yandex, which is present in Russia, US, Israel, and Germany so far. And we try to bring it to more countries, and we're very much looking for international expansion. And so generally speaking, that's it. I don't know if you know our services, or I should go deeper, but I believe you can ask, and we'll dive whenever you want.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you both very, very much. So I guess we can jump into our first questions, right, Victor and Victoria? So would you like to offer the first questions to our guests, and then we take it from there?
Sure. So we were already gathering some questions in advance that we received from students who signed up, and we also thought of some questions ourselves. And firstly, of course, the big topic in online education right now is the impact of the pandemic, of course, onto this field. And we were thinking and wanting to ask what lessons your companies have made during this pandemic, and how did this impact your business, and maybe what changes did you implement because of this pandemic?
I can answer briefly, Ilya, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
I think the main one is that we made like a shift in our audience, because we usually work with people aged like 20, 25. It's people who graduate from university and they want to join like a company and they need new skills. But because of the pandemic, we realized that actually there's a big group of people aged 40, 45 who lost their jobs because of the pandemic. And they need to find themselves somewhere and they want to do something in their life, because they still feel that they have their, like, they want to, yeah. So we decided to move, like to make a shift towards these people and create new courses for them. I think that was one of our main ideas during the pandemic that we wanted to do. And also we realized that the traditional universities who usually work offline, they're going to make a shift towards working online. That's why we decided this year to make these collaborations with the traditional universities. And this was like quite a major thing for us, for the company. Ilya, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, first of all, I would stop on behavior of investors, because if you know, EdTech was a quite hot topic like 5 years ago. A lot of people and a lot of company invested, and even there were a few IPOs, and one of them was 2U. It's a big company which operates on different model that is not existing in Russia so far. It operates courses for universities. So, and it's a huge company actually. It has a market cap around $4 billion, and it was a huge disaster for investors, because in 4 years they lost something like 60% of their market cap, and all investors lost a lot of money. And that's generally was all stories about EdTech were like this. We raised a lot of money, and then it happened some kind of disaster. We're still not profitable, and that's how it works. And I think what investors did during last year and during pandemic, they gave a second chance to EdTech, because we see if we look at markets and we look at stocks, we will see that market cap of all companies grow, and we can also see a few IPOs which are made in last maybe half year. Coursera, for example, one of the biggest and one of forever hope, as they call them in EdTech, which grew significantly during pandemic, but still is not profitable, and they have like kind of big problems with profitability, but still they made IPO and it was big. And we can also see that a few companies are planning to do so, and that trend gives a lot of new money to industry, and that creates probably some pressure on everybody, on existing players, on new players, and EdTech becomes kind of similar to those industry where one of the most important feature of the company is ability to acquire new investors and acquire new money to spend them on marketing, etc. And that's quite different. And despite the fact that we are an internal startup, we are not on the market and nobody can invest in us. Still, investors inside Yandex look at market hubs outside. And of course, they think that long-term we should have our own market cap, and that's how they think, and that's why it influences us as well. Second trend, I believe, was about short-term income, because of course last year and this year was super successful in terms of new income, new students, not that good retention, but good acquisition, and it gave us short-term factors, but we don't see it as a long-term influence, because of the thing that a lot of people tried, but a lot of them find that it's not their thing to do, and we see that our retention in cohorts in last year are much lower than in 2 years before, and I think that's pretty much the same for all the market. I don't know, Yulia, maybe you are the luckiest. So. Yeah, but also what we saw that people tried. Maybe they got disappointed, but maybe in a year they will come back, and that's we think that maybe long term it will give us like 10%, 20% rise in terms of without pandemic. That's our view. And also our product for teacher, which was the winner last year, because we grew like 10 times without doing nothing. It's like just watching, you know, this data when you just watch the data. Yeah, but for teachers it was of course quite big challenge, because they needed to adapt to new reality, and of course they turned their view to new instruments, to new products, including curriculum-based products online, and this market grew significantly, but not in terms of money, because in B2B products, money don't always follow customers. And if we look at our users, we grew great user base, but money in this market are quite in different pockets. So probably they will join users, but not in a moment.
Very nice. Thank you very much for the analytic explanation, dear Ilya, and the very useful insights. Can I very quickly follow up? What exactly is your product about teachers offering to the users?
It's called the Yandex Schoolbook, Учебник in Russian. It's a product for teachers where they can share content with their pupils.
Okay.
And the content is created by our team. So it's not UGC content, it's our our media.
Nice. Okay. So Victor, can I follow up with a question? And before we move on to our guest question, because I'm very intrigued, I'm very interested, you know, and being an academic, you know, I have to ask this question. I cannot escape from it. You know, we academics, we can be very silly. So the big question that I have for you is, how do you differentiate your product, your service, your value proposition essentially, compared to a traditional business school or to traditional university, you know, that is able to transform digitally these days? So, for example, GSOM, where I come from, you know, we had our courses, our content, our, you know, crazy professors, and we managed to, you know, to deliver our content online effectively, I think. So how does your value proposition differentiate from what traditional universities can offer online?
Well, like if we talk about MBA in Netology, like before we launched it, we did this massive customer development, what usually IT companies do. And we spoke to traditional universities, we spoke to people who launched these programs, we actually spoke to people who graduated from their MBA programs like abroad in Russia. We specifically talk to people who graduate from Skolkovo, because they're like a completely different level in terms of price. So we want to find out what's happening and why people choose them. And our main difference in our program in comparison to traditional universities is that we have a chance to choose lecturers from different universities. So we don't have to have our own lecturers and use them all the time. We can always change. We see that the content changes. For example, now it's like very digital transformation, very high topic, and everyone wants to get an idea what it is, like, or what ecosystems are, etc., etc. So we get a chance to invite different lecturers from different universities, choose the best ones and collaborate with them, not just use the teachers, lecturers that we have on board. And also we get a chance to invite like Russian businessmen as well, and they are very like keen on coming and talking. So because they see that they potentially might find their like future customers there in our groups. So this is what doesn't happen in traditional universities, according to the students who we spoke to, and that's how we differentiate ourselves from traditional universities. That's just about MBA in an executive branch of Netology.
Okay, cool, fantastic, thank you. Ilya?
Yeah, well, I don't think we compete with the traditional university actually, because we believe that traditional education in nowadays it's kind of great privilege if you can spend 5 years learning somewhere and not thinking about your income for these 5 years. It's not that small actually. If we look worldwide and we look at different social groups. And our main students are people from age 25, and they probably already have higher education, or maybe they don't and they are not going to. In this way, we don't compete, but of course, we look at university and we try to understand what can be better and what we can take from universities, because of course, in terms of innovation and in methods of education, universities are still doing pretty good, because years of research and years invested in their experience are not going away. Despite the fact they're not that fast in terms of transformation, still they have a lot to learn from, and we try to do so. When we think about our main why we exist, I would say our main goals and why we exist, we think that in online education, we may be the best player who invests in learning experience, because investing in learning experience is tough. It's hard, and you need to get a lot of professionals, and they can work for years and don't get result in the end. Because learning experience is something very, very, very hard to measure. And we even have a group of people who try to measure learning results and learning outcomes. And that's quite actually hard work. And from one hand, but from the other hand, it's quite on the edge of all technologies in education, because we have thousands of pupils, thousands of students, and on this number you can probably use some data, and it's not like custom-made programs for each student. So generally speaking, if our main competence is learning design, online learning design, which is quite different from offline and from face-to-face design. So, and that's probably also, if we still compare with universities, we can say that that's our difference, because universities usually invest a lot in content, but don't invest in learning experience. As well as user experience, if you look at web pages of universities, you will probably understand they don't usually invest in user experience.
Oh,
no offense. I mean, it's just the reality.
It is. I absolutely echo and second what you said. I absolutely agree with that. But a quick response to both of you, just to probe, some further insight. And what about accreditations and certifications of diploma? Don't you need a traditional university on the backside to provide some sort of certification and accreditation? What do I mean by that? Clearly, both touched upon it. You are contemporary, you know, on your topics. You are fast, you are agile, you get the pace of the market because everybody wants something fast, quick. They don't want to waste a lot of time, and they want upskilling. So you want to develop skills and connect them with practice. I get that. But what about, you know, someone who wants to enter in his CV that he has a diploma or a certification or an accreditation from a traditional school? Is this not a threat for you? Julia?
Like the answer is yes and no. We are thinking about it because obviously for an MBA program, accreditation is very important. We're going to have an accreditation for our programs. It's going to be an international one. But we decided to launch the programs without accreditation because our main goal was to have a high standard, a high quality content. And then we realized that if we have that, we'll be able to have this accreditation. But to be honest, when we spoke to potential customers, a lot of them said that accreditation is not as important as it used to be. And we spoke to HR and people who make decisions in the company, and they said that now it doesn't matter as much as it used to because people try to find someone who can, a doer, yeah, and not like a person who just has something on their CV. So if we can show success stories that people graduate from our program and they achieve something, it's much more important than just a course which is accredited. So that's the reason why we decided to have a program without accreditation, but we're definitely going to get one because we want to compete with other good MBA programs. But to be honest, and you know that like in the world there are a lot of MBA programs now which are fully online, and it also shows this trend that people are ready to get this knowledge online, and they're not that interested in programs which have accreditation. So that's our point.
Thank you, Julia. Ilya?
Well, I think that education is one of actually quite profitable industry, because if we look at EBITDA margin of educational businesses, it was huge in last century. Okay, universities usually are non-profit, but still some of them are for-profit, and still, even if they are non-profit, they have a huge amount of money in their budgets to spend. And of course, this kind of industry created a lot of barriers. One of them is very brand-dependent behavior of people, because in education, people are, if you look at big universities, any big university which stopped to invest anything in their educational competences 20 years ago, they're still the best universities in terms of brand knowledge, because brands in education works for centuries. And the second big barrier is, of course, certification. And in Russia, that's not that big barrier, because the only diploma I saw in my life was my own, and I hire a lot of people. Maybe my father in my childhood showed me his diploma and saying that, look, I graduated university for real, and it's not a fairy tale. So yeah, but that's all. And I believe most of people in Russia who are hiring managers never saw a diploma in their life. Because you don't ask people for diploma, maybe they wrote something in their CV. And if you look at this, you look, okay, has he graduated 3 universities I trust? No, okay, doesn't matter. It's a bit different in US. I wouldn't say it's completely different, because now we see the breaking news that Google hires without higher education. And people look at this, and of course, they start to change their behavior as well. But still in US, you have a lot of dependence on certification. And this market is really slow changing. But we think in maybe 10 years, it wouldn't be a problem. And we're not alone in this battle. I would say we have a lot of actually venture capital, a lot of big firms, and a lot of people who are interested in transformation of this market, who try to push this barrier lower. It will not. It will still leave this barrier of brand high enough, and big universities, I don't think they're kind of threatened by us or by anybody else, and I don't think they should. It's just new market, new money, and I think in 10 years there will be no barriers, and so we don't think that trying to put somebody on our back and trying to make some certification and showing that still we are kind of university is not something we want to do. There are some maybe programs which is impossible to launch by our own, but not in terms of certification, more in terms of competence. Because, for example, if we will start to look in, I don't know, MBA as well, and start to create something where content is very important, where content is head of the game. And in MBA, it's not even content. I believe it's some kind of touching famous people. MBA is all about touching famous people in some way. And in this way, we should, of course, have somebody in partners, but not in our nowadays fields, I would say.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Ilya. Thank you very much, Julia. I'm very intrigued to continue questioning and asking you about your value proposition and so on. But I will stop here to allow for other guests to ask you questions because I don't want to monopolize the discussion. If we have time later on, I can follow up. I already have a lot of notes in front of me. So thank you very much for your wonderful insights. I think this shows certainly, a trend, future trends, and it does not necessarily mean that we are competitive. Maybe we are complementary, right? So we're not directly competitive. I can sense that. Right. So Victor, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, sure. So please also let me remind you, if anybody feels like speaking up, please raise your hand and you can just do so once it's your turn. And also touching up on the point you mentioned already that we had due to the pandemic, a grow in acquisition, but therefore also lower retention rates than before. Could you both maybe mention, because it was also asked a lot, often people see the pandemic like something purely positive for online education and EdTech. Could you maybe mention some problems or challenges that are also arise with this pandemic? Maybe there were problems with dealing with a large number of people suddenly wanting to access your service or something in this way?
Well, I would definitely say that we had the problem of a digital divide. Some departments definitely faced it. If we talk about MBA, I would say that the main challenge that we faced was lack of communication on all levels. What I mean is that students found it very difficult because MBA is also about making connections, and we realized that people were not used to make these connections via Zoom. It was difficult for them. They were not used to it. They didn't know how to do it. And they when we gathered the feedback from the students, they said that they felt lonely in the classroom because they didn't even feel that they were in the classroom because they were one-to-one with their computer. Also, I would say it was sometimes challenging for the lecturers because most of them got used to teaching offline and they knew how to interact with the students in a class, but they didn't know how to do it online. So they didn't know how to make them speak up and make sure that they understand the material. And it happened with students as well because they didn't know how to make this connection with the lecturer because they were not sure that he or she could see the student, how to talk to him, and etc. etc. So now we really want to invest our time in helping students and lecturers to feel more comfortable in the online environment because I think it's going to be a new normal And we have to get used to the fact that if we want to study that, we can also do it online as well, even if it's like on an executive level.
Mm-hmm.
That's from my side.
Yeah, well, generally speaking, when you make an online services, one of good point that you don't really feel afraid of a lot of customers, but still you remember quite good this times when somebody from backend development came to you and said, we have a lot of technical legacy, let's do this, and you said like, I don't care, we have product to make, so later. And then this later comes and you see like your services breaking down, and you start to like fix it, and you make some kind of fix on the fix, and in the end you came to backend developers and saying, you know guys, you were right, and now we have to work extra. And that's what happened, I think, to most of online services in education and e-com and a lot of like maybe media services. But in the end, of course, it was more positive than negative for the industry, and like new companies like grew as mushrooms, as you say in Russians and in Russian. So yeah, you can't argue with business grow, you know.
Of course, but for example, when you mentioned about the retention rate, could you maybe draw some conclusions or some insights how you could improve this based on this pandemic, or basically you felt like it's the natural thing to happen when so many people sign up?
It's natural thing because it's different audience. You always test your product on the audience which is closer to you, because this is the easiest and fastest way to acquire people and start, acquire a new audience, acquire new customers, and start developing your product. But when something like huge, like pandemic happens, a lot of people come from different audiences. Maybe they have like lower digital skills. Maybe they have a lower motivation, because in the beginning of pandemic, everybody thought, okay, these 2 months, after 2 months, I will be much better. I will be like healthier, I will be better in better form, I will educate myself, I will end all the courses I didn't end in the last 10 years. And after a week, they understood that maybe if after 2 months I will be the same, it's a great result, So, and that happens to retention as well, I would say.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your answers. We also have a question from Elena Sokolova, who posted her question in the chat. Are you planning to work together with startups? If yes, could you name maybe already some existing interesting collaborations or options that you have?
For Netology, we are planning to collaborate with the International Accelerator, and we're going to have a program for startups. It's going to happen either this year or at the beginning of next year. And the main goal is like to help startups and the founders achieve their next quality level. But it's like, I can't say more for now, just we're in the progress of like signing a contract. So we're definitely going to do this because there is a big field, and we have a lot of people who come to us and say that we have startups, we need some help, and there's definitely a field, but just sign up and wait for a new program.
Yandex usually doesn't invest in startups only if it's technology, and we understand that we need to be close to this technology because we don't have. I mean, we are bad in like we're not the best venture investor. We don't have this competence inside, and we're a strategic investor. So you should find good venture investor and then sell it to us. That's what you should do. And that's our view on startups. Of course, we're ready to to share some expertise, and sometimes we make some collaborations, but mostly with the social startups. For example, like we made a big course on training teachers in working with the hard behavior of pupils, of students in schools, and hard behavior, no, tough behavior, how do I say better? But yeah, and so we made it in collaboration with the company called, with NGO called Shalash. They're kind of social startup, and mainly we collaborate with non-profit startups, with social entrepreneurs. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I also wanted to add that if you like Netology actually invest in startups, but if they're only like related to education, so we have like a completely different company that does it, but it's part of the Netology group. So if your startup somehow relates to education, you can apply and have a chance to work with, become part of the Netology group. That's also an option.
Super interesting. I guess also especially interesting for many of our students, because we have many that are interested in making their own startup, and I guess many have some good ideas gathered now during this pandemic. So they will definitely be glad to hear this. Also, we had a lot of questions about the future of online technology, online education, and in context to this also maybe some technology that you are interested about or that you are very excited about, maybe looking into the future, like 5 or 10 years or 15 years even. I guess that's impossible nowadays, but are there certain technologies that you feel very excited about that you could use for your services in the future? And how do you see the online education transforming and developing in the next years?
Well, I would definitely say that LMS is, we're looking forward that it's going to become more adaptive and personalized. It's like, it's very important for MBA, for everyone, I think, and it has, I think, a lot of potential, and I think LMS has a potential to become like a friend, student's friend in their student's journey. So this is one thing that I'm personally excited about, and we work on this. I would definitely say that mobile learning and micro learning are the other two things that we're looking at, because people with, like, in digital world, and when everything goes so fast, it's important to have a chance to learn like certain skills at a certain time, and micro learning helps with that. And also mobile learning helps a lot when you don't have like your computer and you want to study all the time, so you don't have to stop just because you're not like next to a laptop. So this is another thing that we're looking at. But I think Ilya has more to say about this, because they're definitely good at this and invest a lot of time.
You would be surprised, but I think we're very old-fashioned actually, and we believe that education is still trying to like use technologies called internet and Skype, and it's not really successful so far. So yeah, and like a few years ago when we started our product, and our product didn't include any videos. It was fully based on text and reading, and people who tried it, and they were like amazed, because they were saying, look, I spent 1.5 hours, I was interested, and there was no video. And we were like, well, actually, yes, learning is not about watching video. It's generally about working with text, and that's what all the research say to us. So generally speaking, we believe that in terms of technologies, we need to bring a lot of knowledge from classical research, from a lot of research that were made actually in the last century, and we should put it online, because a lot of research which was made in education never like was implemented even in face-to-face learning. Because when you look at all that evidence-based like science knows about how people learn, and then you compare it to what actually happens in a classroom, you feel the difference, because it's like two worlds which are not connected and never spoke to each other. And we think that solving this gap in online education may be a bit like it may be even maybe easier even than in face-to-face, because we don't have all this legacy of people who invested their life in teaching as they used to. And when you start to do something together, they are very biased by their experience. And in online education, we don't have this, and we can implement it. And so generally speaking, I would say we are very old-fashioned. And of course, we try to work with data and everything else, but we don't see so far that data or even machine learning will bring us some disruptive technologies in next 10 or 20 years in education. And generally speaking, the only disruptive technology in online education so far was Skype, Zoom, etc., because that actually gave us access to content in different parts of the world, but nothing else happened in last 20 years.
You know, I had a chance to talk to Coursera last week, and they told me that half of the money they raised on IPO, they're going to invest in machine learning, and that they have already massive plan how they're going to predict what's the next course student has to teach, and they say that they have like this massive plan. So this is quite interesting. I don't know, because we definitely.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, they will in the end invest it in machine learning and marketing.
Yeah, true. But
that's what they will do, because all the best minds in the world are so far thinking about how they will make us make a new click in some web page. That's what will happen. But of course, they will invest it.
Yeah.
Okay, Anton, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. I think it question more to Yulia, but if Yulia want to answer me, it will be great too. Yulia says that that successful alumni of MBA program will be a best proof of quality of education in this program. But how to explain the quality to the first students? In other words, how to prove the quality before before the successful alumni appear?
Well, you mean, if I understood you correctly, that you mean how do we prove that we have the quality content to the first students? Well,
yes, I mean that.
Good question. Thank you. Basically, I think that's why we collaborated with the top universities, because in our programs we have like theoretical part and like a practical part, and like for the theory we collaborated like with the Ivy League universities, with the Cambridge, Oxford, INSEAD, etc., and this really helped us to, like, this is well-known brands, and this is like they're very traditional universities who have really good history, and you know the alumni and you know the professors, because you can see their work, and they're not just professors, they're practitioners as well. You know, they work with top companies all over the world, and this really helped us prove to our first students that the quality of the program is going to be really good, because the top universities put their hands into the program and created it. So that's how we dealt with this question, because obviously we had this question because when we first started, we competed with the rest with other universities on the market, and that's how we decided to differentiate ourselves, by using the names and the professors.
Yeah, Yeah, and I'll also answer if you don't mind. It's a great question, and it's kind of interesting. I thought about it a lot. I think there are 4 strategies in this term. The first one called Grecian horse, which was used probably by Julia. So you just say, okay, we're not Netology, we're INSEAD, and then you appear to be Netology, and that's how you guarantee your quality in your first graduation. A second, which we used, was like, we will give you money back if you don't employ. We will just, we will take all the risks on us, and it works because people think, okay, I don't lose anything, and probably if they say they will give me money back, it means something. Also, you can do something like free trial, because in the US, for example, where people don't trust Yandex because they know it, they don't know it. We just made a few groups for free. People graduate and they become to speak about us and become better. Reviews on all web pages, and also there is a good way to make a huge and very hard application and exams on the entrance to the program, because this way people will feel that it's quite hard to get to the program. And if you try to make something really privileged, probably you need to make some entrance really hard and tough to enter the program, and this will give your brand a huge acceleration in the beginning. That's what happened actually with the Yandex program, which called the School of Data Analysis. It's like 13 years old, and it's one of the best in the market, in the world market, I would say. And it's really hard to get there, and that's why we have best students, and then they become best alumnus, and then we have good brand. So probably that's how it works. Or you can don't you can don't care about this and just invest in marketing, and in a lot of markets it will work, because sometimes buying of education is still an emotional decision, because people, I don't know, get fired and they come home, drink maybe 2 beers and think, okay, I need new life. How I do it? I learn, and they buy some online education. That's what happens actually.
And then we have a lot of dropouts.
And
then we have a lot of dropouts. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you for answers.
Great. Jana, you also have a question.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Yulia, Ilya, thank you so much for sharing so many insights with us. And my question is about the different peculiarities that Russian market has in comparison to the global market, or for example, European or North American one. And for example, what potential do Russian EdTech projects have when it comes to exporting it to different markets? For example, Yandex Practicum was quite recently launched in Northern America. Probably you could elaborate a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, maybe I'll start, Julian.
Yes.
If you have something to add. Yeah, well, actually penetrating US market as well as Europe market is more about marketing than about product, because you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't have good marketing in US, or you don't have good story, because US market is quite story driven, you cannot penetrate it. And that's probably the main insight you should know before entering this market. And then if you are B2C product as we are, you need to be patient, because you will not have enough money to invest it in maybe 2-3 years, because everybody has a lot of money. Everybody raised a few $1 million and can invest it in a few marketing campaigns. And so what you can do is grow your quality, make more alumnus, and then in the end you will have a good customer acquisition cost, and at this point you can invest a lot of money. That's probably the only strategy which is possible for foreign products which try to enter US market in B2C markets, because B2B market, and especially small business market, B2SMB, is quite different, and it's much easier to penetrate. because when we look at some products, even in EdTech, who are successful at US markets, in the SMB segment, it's quite easier to become successful, and it's much less cost share. So that's what you should know probably. And of course, there are some people who cares where the product came from, if it's from Russia, if it's from different countries, but most of people don't care. They just care if you have a good reputation, if you have good price and good quality. That's all. That's all what's important. And I mean, at some point you should become American startup, which is possible at any stage, because at any stage you can open a company in the US and you can start using the US brand. And that will give you all the, local influence you need. So that's it. And also, I think that in terms of education in Russia, we have really good competence in actually educational content. And it's not that expensive as in US, for example, because in US to hire people who can write good content is quite expensive. And in Russia is much less expensive. A lot of graduates from good universities can work for you and create like high-end content for small fees in comparison with all other world.
Thank you very much.
I don't think I'm gonna add much to this question, because we didn't have an experience of like entering different markets so far. To be honest, we're thinking about it, because with the MBA programs, when we first launched, we started having a lot of international students from other countries, and we actually raised this question, like how to enter different markets. But I think the barriers to entry are really high, and we need to, like, we are still thinking whether we should do it, whether it's the good strategy for us or not. That's why, like, at this stage, there's not much information I can share with you, but hopefully next time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, the main lesson we learned is that you should start to make your international expansion from day one. You like offer product to Russia, because in 1 year you will have a lot of problems in Russia, and you will not have like a priority on launching something international. That's the main story of Yandex, I would say. And Yandex Education tried to learn this lesson, and we launched the US development at the same day we launched in Russia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, but I'm writing an article about EdTech at the moment. And is it possible that I refer to your answers in the article? I can send it to you for approval, or maybe contact you in the future. I'm sorry to take time from the session for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Very interesting question and answers. Also, Ilias has another question, I believe.
Hello, I think you can hear me now. Thank you for your interesting insights. So my question is about the life experience that university provides, and how can you cope with that? What do I mean? Studying in university has a much more broader sense than transmission of knowledge. We have a very important social life and social aspect. People meet each other, they do activities, they study together in libraries, they have fun. They make this whole education experience fun. And also, since we have Yannis here, I may say that the personal experience, the fact that I had known some people from this from last year, helped me personally to cope with this online education, because I could even call Yannis and talk with him if I had some problems or something like that. And I knew him. So that helped me keep going. Do you think that many students may not complete their online certificates because they don't have this extra experience and this extra personal chat, connection, let's say? And do you think that your platforms can substitute that? And if yes, how? Thank you very much.
Well, to be honest, I don't think we really have to substitute this because it's like completely different experience. I agree with you, but like Ilya said that mentioned that about barriers like to enter the course, and when we talk about MBA, that's what we do, because the most important thing for us is to get motivated students who actually understand why they decide to enter the course. And we like by examining them, we can understand whether there's a high chance they're going to complete the course. And we're looking for this kind of students who understand, like who have a certain goal, and they understand that this education is going to help them complete this goal. So I think the motivation is the key at this stage, because studying online is definitely very difficult and challenging at times. As I said, that our students found it difficult to be the only person in the classroom, yes, because they were by themselves. But if you're motivated enough, I think it should help to keep you going and graduate, because as I said, online education probably going to be a new normal now, and people, even like in traditional universities all around the world, that people still study online and they don't get a chance to experience what you experience, what you mentioned. So I guess that's the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, in terms of completion rate, I think there is some kind of miscommunication, because in the beginning of Coursera and all kinds of open courses, they said that completion rate is extremely low. It's like 3%. But if we look at nowadays online bootcamps or online courses like Practicum by Yandex, or like Udacity, or like Lambda School, we will see that completion rate, for example, in Practicum is not a secret. It's 75% of students who started the course. I mean, paying when they paid for the course, they finished it. And in universities, it's probably even lower, because like good universities try to keep it as low as 50-60%, as I know, because some students don't achieve like all the necessary requirements. So yeah, and so I think it's not true that online has a lower completion rate. It's actually vice versa. But what is really important, I think, that in like campus life is a great experience in your life, and it's great time to spend with different people in networking and in actually growing as a personality, as a human being, I would say, because all of us who had this privilege to study in university, I believe, even if it wasn't like the best university in the world, still we have a lot of friends from university, and still we have a lot of experience, and a lot of our knowledges and a lot of our understanding of the world comes from these years. So of course, I believe if you have this opportunity to spend 5-6 years without working and without trying to, earn money, and you can learn like offline in a good campus, it's certainly the thing to do. And even if you like drop it in 3 years, still it will be a great experience. And what we do in online platforms, we try to implement all the available instruments which we can for communication between students. For example, in Practicum, we implement Slack, and all students from day one, they communicate with each other in Slacks, and they of course have some Zoom meetings, and they have everything that we can implement in terms of social communication, because it's very important for educational process. Because one of the things we try to teach our students is how to ask questions. And one of the easiest way to do so is make them ask questions to their classmates. Because like if you want to have good professional in the end of the program, he should also know how to ask questions and find answers. Without this, it doesn't work. So I think, yeah, it's very important, and this issue is quite sensitive and important for all online educational products.
Thank you for your answers. If I may say, I think virtual reality might be a good solution. I don't know, but I'm thinking of something that you can just wear some glasses and get into the educational matrix. But thank you for your answers.
Yeah, I know. I think in this year of pandemic, we all felt that these, 3D people, as the developers call them, have some magic in it. I mean, speaking face to face, it still has some magic, and I wouldn't say it's bad.
So unfortunately, we already reached our time limit. I would still want to fit in one last question, if possible, also from the audience, if you could answer it briefly. As most of us here are students, what skills are essential, or what could you recommend to students what they could do if they are interested to start working, for example, for Yandex Practicum or for Netology Group? What skills or what should we do in order to achieve this? What skills should we obtain?
Well, I think it's a good question, but I would definitely say that emotional intelligence is one of the key things at the moment. Probably everyone is talking about it, but I personally think it's very important, because if you're you have to be able to deal with certain things when you work, and you have to be in good mind, if I could say so. Yeah, and you have to be ready that some things don't go according to plan. Like pandemic showed us that sometimes things happen that we don't expect. So you have to be ready for this. And if you are good with your emotions, then you can do whatever you want. Other skills you can learn anywhere else, but you have to always work on your emotions and be ready to deal with them. That's definitely one skill I suggest to students.
Very interesting. Ilya, what would you add?
Well, when we think about managers, product managers, or people reporting on some part of the business, of some business unit inside our company, we think that first of all they should have some kind of ownership mindset. They should always think about their part which they're responsible for as part of the business, and they should always think about the big business in general, and they should always feel that they care about it. I mean, if they don't care and they are not result oriented, probably nothing will help them. So this is the thing. I don't know if it's possible to grow in yourself because as usually we don't believe that it's kind of thing you can change in short term, but long term probably you can, and that's what's important. And the second thing, which is quite also hard changing actually, is something about we call it deep thinking, because education is kind of complicated industry, and most of people who come with ideas that are easy to reach, probably they don't work not because nobody's thought about this. They don't work because of something else, and you need to understand it. And if you don't understand it, you will probably not be successful in the educational industry. And that's I don't know how to call it properly, but we call it deep thinking. And that's one of the things we are looking to in our team.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much for your questions already for your answers from my side. It was super interesting, super insightful. And I will give now the word to Yannis for some closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Victor, and all the guests, and especially our distinguished guests, our speakers today, Julia and Ilya. It was really enlightening, educating, and pleasant. Thank you very much for these wonderful insights and this lovely discussion. I'm sure we have many questions to follow up, so we might drop you an email or call you on Telegram to follow up, and maybe we can organize something in the future. I would like to really thank you for spending the time with us. I hope you also enjoyed it. And finally, before we close, Julia and Ilya, if you are thinking of any academic collaboration with your companies, please keep us in mind. GSOM is very open and very innovative, and now we are also expanding digitally. So if you want to explore potential collaborations together, please reach out. Yeah, I'm extending the invitation to both of you. Right. So again, thank you all for being here. I will let you go and rest, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you all very, very much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.